Sorry for that introduction. We've also got Cathy Griffin, who will be helping us with some of the videos that we've got. And my very brief introduction just takes us back 20 years ago, since we started the self-study SIG. And so over that 20 years, we've actually really worked, certainly a number of us, to try to transform what we count as educational knowledge. So whilst we've got this event now at AERA, we've actually got a longitudinal study, which if you get into actionresearch.net, the website, you'll be able to actually see the development of ideas, and in particular the nature of the knowledge that we're claiming we're actually transforming through our inquiries. And we're focusing today on issues to do with a culture of inquiry, but also something that I know those of you who have followed some of this work for years, that the multimedia presentations are really crucial. That we're claiming that the kind of embodied knowledge that we're expressing, and we'll hear Liz and Cathy talking about values such as being loved into learning and working with Jackie, actually do transform what counts as explanatory principles in terms of educational knowledge. So we're actually claiming that the kind of work we're doing, which is inclusional, can help to transform what counts as educational knowledge as distinct from the kind of knowledge that many of us are used to at AERA, which is focused on what I call the nature of the education researcher, who is influenced by the disciplines of education, rather than the self-studies of their own practice. So I'm hoping that we get a lot of ideas coming from you in the discussion part, and I'm now going to turn to Jackie, who will just introduce her papers before, her ideas, before we go on to Liz and Cathy.
Good morning, everyone. It's hard to believe it's 20 years of self-study. SIG, that's pretty amazing work, isn't it? First of all, it's difficult for us to really share all that we've learned without being able to share all the visual data that we have. And it makes up a very large part of the data that we think provides evidence to support the claims that we've made to know. Within the paper, if you can access it, there are 9 video clips. There's 1 painting and 1 poem, and thousands that we took out. Our work focuses on creating cultures of inquiry, which are safe, loving, supportive spaces for learning and for creating rigorous scholarly research. We've developed it in all of our contexts, Jack in the UK, and Liz and Cathy and I in Ontario, Canada. That culture of inquiry is also endemic to the process of creating this paper. And just to give you kind of a sense of it, our normal meeting time was 9:30 Sunday morning in Ontario, Canada. We're all in different places. And 2:30 on Sunday afternoon in Bath, UK, on Skype. And we used the conference facility. And in addition to that, we used Google Drive to create the paper. So, although we know each other, of course I studied with Jack at Bath, and Liz and Cathy were in my master's group in the Blue Water School Board. So, we do know each other. We haven't sort of created relationships from scratch virtually. But within that virtual space, we created a culture of inquiry where we developed this paper. And within the paper, we have deepened our understandings of some of the concepts we thought we knew well before. So we have all taught each other a deeper understanding of being a critical friend, of a culture of inquiry, of living theory and what our living theories are. And I'm absolutely thrilled to have Liz and Cathy with us today for their first AERA.
And it's absolutely thrilling to meet the 3D Jack Whitehead. Because although we didn't meet him in cyberspace, we didn't meet him in 3 dimension until we got here. So I just want to add a little bit to what's already been said. Jack spoke about the focus on educational research, and that's probably what resonated with me immediately in Jackie's class when she introduced us to living educational theory. This is educational. I've been an educator for almost 2 decades. I've been involved in PD for over 2 decades. I was doing a master's program, and it's the first time I encountered something that gave me some meaning and some way to move forward that was authentic. So Jackie created this culture of inquiry where I felt loved into learning, but it was still rigorous because it was more rigorous than anything I had done before because it was educational. And in that culture of inquiry, I discovered my own voice. Through that voice, I was able to transcend boundaries, whether they were perceived or imposed, that prevented me from flourishing individually prior to that. Now I could flourish. I found my own voice. I was able to identify shame that I carried with me for 20 years because I never did graduate from high school, so I was like an imposter teacher. and identifying that voice enabled me to transcend those boundaries. Others as well, but that's one example. So in this loving culture of inquiry, I found my voice. I transcended those constraints, and I was able to flourish individually, take that back to the classroom, and affect, my students, the learners in my care, and, a broader social formation influence as well, so that we can flourish collectively. This, I think, is what holds hope for the future of humanity, and also what will create sustainable change in education.
So I'm going to hear some similar things coming from me. I also felt through my master's course with Jackie that I was being loved into learning, that her unflagging support, her availability, and her just-in-time feedback for me was really important. But perhaps most important was her absolute determination to have me realize that the knowledge I have was worthy of sharing. And she allowed me to develop trust in my own ideas as a teacher practitioner. So I believe that our paper is very significant in building a body of this educational research of practitioners who are asking the question, how can I improve my practice? So my question for my MN thesis was, how can I improve my practice by living my values of love, trust, and authenticity more fully? And the reason I was doing this was because a bond with even one adult for a child, a strong bond, can have a huge effect on the resiliency. And so I explored barriers which kept me from forming those bonds, strong bonds with my students. So I continued in our Skype conversations and our work over the last couple of years, using these values as explanatory principles to guide my practice, and also as standards of judgment to tell how I was progressing. I could tell that there was a living contradiction in what I was doing, a disconnection between my values and what I was actually doing, and was able to plan action research cycles around that. So within our work, there were 2 basic living contradictions that I've worked on around the area of trust, and within those I've seen behavioral and attitudinal changes over time in myself and in the people that I have influenced, including my students. And the evidence is in the videos. It's in what I say, how I say it, and how people react to what I say. And the first living contradiction was basically my trust within this culture of inquiry, making that transition from MEd student to co-researcher with 2 professors. And you'll see that in the clip. So I had to get over that sense of trusting my own embodied knowledge again through this process. And the second living contradiction I found was around the idea of what critical feedback actually is, what it looks like, what it feels like. And my students actually highlighted the fact that my traditional model of giving them feedback, you've done this well, but your next step should be, should be to do this. That positive and negative model made them feel, in their words, like I was lecturing them, and like they felt like a bad person when they got any sort of negative feedback. So I was working through this process at understanding what critical feedback might look like and feel like in a trusting culture of inquiry. And I came to the conclusion that your own personal criticism, like questioning your own work and questioning that of others, becomes really blurred as you are in a very strong culture of inquiry with shared values and shared goals, and it becomes much more comfortable and easy. So the first video clip we have, you're going to see this going through a very fast section. This is what we do to look for moments of empathetic resonance, and you can see in that last part of that clip of really the
one thing that bothered me when we were talking was that you are having put in a position where you have to be defensive. You know, I mean, and not that it's all bad. I mean, out of that came this beautiful and clear explanation. But it...
Okay, so you can see that going through that clip at full speed. That's what we look like when we're talking together on Skype. And when we went too fast, we looked for those moments of increased movement, and we look back to see, okay, what is it that's being talked about? And in that clip, Jackie's talking about how it hurts her that one of her students has to defend something she passionately believes in to people that don't understand this method of inquiry. In this section, this is me talking about these two as professors. Do you want to
professors, right? And I say it with that term. You're not. There's no.
Can I just pause it there? Because no, it's just that on those moments when you feel that energy, that was where we resonated with the fundamental values that we thought were right at the heart of our educational relationship, which, if you look at quite a bit of the video, you actually don't see. And it's those moments of that, again, a loving energy, which we're calling a life-affirming energy, which is often totally omitted from the accounts that you get in the traditional research. And at those moments, and they're just flashes, they happen quickly, but those are the ones, using our cursor, we focused on with that resonance. And I think that's really vital. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thanks. We've run out of time. Yes.
You have a chance to be around the table with Jackie, Cathy, and Liz. So we'll move on to Christine.
Hi, good morning. I wanted to start out by apologizing that I'm going to probably have to run out when the discussion begins because I have to go present in about 5 minutes. And I'm upset that I got squashed that way between the two because there's so much to say, and this has been such a powerful session. Reading the papers was an incredible experience, I want to just frame my remarks, which will be very brief, because we really want to give people who sat in these rich discussions the opportunity to speak also. But when we think of the theme of this session, it was called Self-Study Across Cultural Contexts. And I think we have to look at culture in two different ways, in the sense of how each of the authors within the papers really took a very, very intense look at what it was for themselves and how it was transformative in terms of creating these cultures of inquiry within their own spaces as researchers and then within the context in schools that they went out into and worked into. And I think the work that we all do as self-study researchers and teachers is work that is so powerful and has such incredible possibility in terms of transforming education and transforming the lives of the people that we work with. And I think what really speaks to me and comes out of all of the work, and specifically that came out of these